can get Star Wars into anything. It's true. So Lindsay, thank you for inviting me. Thank you all for coming. So I just want to dedicate this essay to my father-in-law, Dan. So I'll just start. It's called What I Will Take to Vietnam. I am packing a suitcase for Vietnam. Half a century ago, the United States sent men to that country with flak jackets, M16s, grenade launchers, and Agent Orange. The suggested packing list for my trip reads comfortable shoes, comfortable sandals, summer clothes, a light jacket, sunscreen, hat, sunglasses, bathing suit. I have to pack for the kind of heat that can only be described by the word languid. The kind of heat that surrounds you and gets inside of you and makes you see things. And how many soldiers of both sides who died violent deaths and rotted to ghosts will I see in this place that I am going? Half a century ago, the men of my country packed their flak jackets and M16s and went to Vietnam and came back changed. They came back sleepless. Unspeakable things burned behind their eyes in a deep place, unreachable. Need I also pack heavy armor against the things that make these men sweat in the night? Once, I almost joined the Army. As the sergeant drove me to the Air Force Reserve Base to take the aptitude test, I thought about things I couldn't bring to basic training. Books, a cell phone, computer, my favorite hoodie. I thought about writing letters the way I used to when my best friend moved to Florida in second grade and long-distance calls were too expensive. I thought about the desert because that's where that car ride would have taken me eventually. I wanted to be a journalist, but they wanted me for psychological operations to convince Iraqi or Afghani citizens that the United States was working in their best interest, doing the right thing. In two different words, emotional propaganda. I wondered, is journalism any different? Either way, my college loans would have been paid off in 4 years instead of 20, and I'd have served my country. I tell my father-in-law I'm going to Vietnam. I hold my breath, cheeks on fire, hands sweating, waiting for his reaction. For a moment, he says nothing, and I fear I've put him back in the jungle with whatever unspeakable things he carries with him every day. Maybe I have. When he asks me where in Vietnam I am going, I hear a tightness in his voice. Or is it a tightness in my ears? We're flying to Saigon and traveling up to Hanoi. Well, if you're traveling in the countryside and your bus stops, don't go wandering around in the jungle, he says. There are a lot of unexploded landmines. Those things have a long shelf life. I won't. A small comfort. He says nothing else. I hated it, but I ran every day until I could do a mile in 10 minutes and 30 seconds. The minimum to pass basic training. I imagined the desert would feel like that all the time, sweat beading on my scalp, lungs hot. I did push-ups on the floor of my studio apartment and thought about the ways basic would shape my muscles, literally and figuratively. My recruiter sent me encrypted emails urging me to enlist before graduation, but I didn't want to ship out right after college. Pittsburgh's sky got bluer every day, and I craved time to read beneath it, time to chase away the lingering effects of winter's monochrome. I read about escorting war correspondents into combat zones, running a base newspaper, and writing stories on army bands and football teams. I thought about propaganda and death, and the difference between them. The desert filled my dreams with sand and bullets. In April 2009, I finished my bachelor's degree in English writing and got a job at a community newspaper. Sometimes at night, the things I would have seen in the desert find the edges of my vision. Last summer, my father-in-law sat at the edge of his hospital bed in the VA in Philadelphia, where he'd been for days because his heart surgery was delayed. The nurses seemed friendly, but the place felt deserted. No one was there visiting. No activity filled the halls. He had served as a crew chief on a Huey helicopter in central Vietnam toward the end of the war. Now he wears a hat with his unit number and covers his truck in Vietnam bumper stickers. One reads, "Not all wounds are visible." It chills me, even in summer. He tells us they're starting to retire the Hueys. I can see the pain in his eyes, and I know it isn't from what he saw or did in the jungle, or loneliness from being at the hospital so long. They're forgetting about Vietnam, he says, and they're forgetting about us. Desert heat and jungle heat aren't the same. Desert heat is so dry, you feel you'll evaporate. Jungle heat is so thick, you feel like you're moving through water. I can't explain why the desert called out to me to pick up a gun for a war I didn't believe in. I still feel it sometimes, that unfathomable keening. I never wanted to kill someone. I want to see what our M16s and grenade launchers and Agent Orange do to a nation 50 years later. Because it isn't just our men who lived those horrors. The Vietnamese still live with the things we've left them. Unexploded landmines in their jungle, chemicals in their water. Many rural villages have no schools, no books. Maybe all of that would be different if my country had left Vietnam alone, and maybe only some of it would. Even so, this place welcomes us now with our bathing suits and comfortable sandals. I will honor that and leave the heavy armor at home so that I will see everything and feel everything. I welcome the ghosts from both sides, and I will not forget them. Thank you.